All right, everyone, welcome back to the Senior Health Hub. Today, we're diving deep into something incredibly important, something that could genuinely make a huge difference in your life or the life of someone you deeply care about. You know, most of us picture a stroke happening like a sudden shock, completely out of the blue, a total emergency. But what if I told you the first signs aren't always dramatic? What if they're actually hiding in plain sight, tucked away in the simple things you do every single morning? And here's the really eye-opening part. What if some of those innocent, everyday morning habits you've probably done for years are quietly, silently increasing your stroke risk? Maybe even tripling it? We've got a truly remarkable person joining us today. Someone who's been studying this exact topic for decades, a leading expert who's still sharp and practicing at over 100 years old. He's here to share essential insights, the kind of knowledge every senior, and really anyone who cares about an older adult, needs to hear right now before it's too late. Please join me in welcoming back Dr. Hinhara. Applause, thank you so much. It's always an honor to be here. And yes, this message is absolutely critical, especially for my patients over 60. Strokes don't just appear out of nowhere. The signals are there, the underlying causes are often present, and with the right understanding, they can absolutely be prevented. But you have to know that the window of opportunity often starts early, right when you first wake up. That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? We tend to imagine a stroke as that dramatic collapse, the slurred speech, the face suddenly going numb. But you're saying the real warning signs are often much quieter. They can pop up when we least expect them, while we're just brushing our teeth, getting dressed, or fixing that first cup of coffee. So let's jump right into it. Exactly. That's why this conversation is so crucial. It's not just about recognizing emergencies. It's about paying attention to those subtle initial clues, the little messages your body sends out long before a stroke even happens. In this episode, we're going to reveal those first sneaky signs that most people completely miss. We're also going to walk you through the most common, and frankly, the worst morning habits I see in seniors that silently push up their stroke risk. Some of these might seriously surprise you, and I'll tell you right now, the last two habits we'll cover are the most dangerous and the most often overlooked. So, if you're over 60, or you have parents, grandparents, or anyone you love who is, please stay with us all the way to the end. This isn't just about prevention. It's about actively protecting your most precious asset, your brain. Every single small adjustment we discuss today could quite literally be the difference between a perfectly normal morning and an event that changes everything forever. All right, Dr. Hinhara, let's start at the beginning. What's the very first warning sign you tell your patients to keep an eye out for? It's not pain, it's not feeling dizzy. It's something much more understated, and precisely because of that, far more risky. For many seniors, the very first real indicator of a potential stroke is a sudden, noticeable change in their coordination. Picture this. You reach out for your toothbrush, and your hand just doesn't quite land where you intended. You go to take a sip of your morning tea, and a little bit spills out. You try to button a shirt, and your fingers feel clumsy, not paralyzed or numb, just off. These aren't big, dramatic symptoms, and that's exactly why people tend to brush them aside. But they are neurological signals. Your brain is in charge of every smooth, controlled movement your body makes. So when something feels awkward, slow, or uncoordinated, that's not just part of getting old. It could be a sign that blood flow to your brain is being interrupted. Have you seen specific examples of this with your patients? Oh yes, many times. I had a patient, a sharp retired accountant, 74 years old. He came to see me not because he felt ill, but because he said, "Doctor, I've been dropping my keys more often lately." My wife even pointed out I'm fumbling with my shirt buttons. He initially thought it might be arthritis, but as I asked more questions, he also mentioned something else. A few days prior, he tried to write down his grocery list, and for a second, he just completely forgot how to spell milk. His mind just went blank. No headache, no slurred speech, but something was clearly wrong. We did a scan, and we found he had experienced a small TIA, a sort of mini-stroke, earlier that week. Those next 48 hours were absolutely critical. We adjusted his medication, cleaned up his diet, kept a close watch on his blood pressure and hydration. He never went on to have a full stroke, all because we listened to those subtle early warnings. And that's really the key, isn't it? Catching these things before they cause irreversible damage. Exactly. There was a major study published in a top medical journal that followed patients after they had TIAs. They found that the first 48 hours were the highest risk period for a major stroke. But here's the powerful part. If a patient received treatment during that short window, the risk of a major stroke dropped by over 80%. That shows you how quickly you need to act and how much power you have to change the outcome just by being aware. Wow, that's both incredibly serious and incredibly hopeful at the same time. It means simply paying attention, noticing that something feels a bit off, can literally save your brain from damage. Yes, exactly, but only if you know what specifically to look for and, crucially, when to look for it. Let's talk about that when, because you've mentioned before that the most dangerous time for a stroke isn't actually during a really stressful day. It's often first thing in the morning. Why is that? Because your brain starts its day even before you fully do. And for most people over 60, that very first hour after you open your eyes is when your body is most vulnerable to a stroke. Here's the simple explanation. Overnight, your body gets dehydrated. You haven't had any water, maybe for 6 to 8 hours. Your blood naturally becomes a little thicker. Your cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, surges sharply as the sun comes up. And for many older adults, their blood pressure tends to rise right along with it. This creates what I call a perfect storm situation: thicker blood vessels that might be less flexible, and a sudden rush of pressure going through arteries that have aged over time. Now add to that the way many people start their day, rushing, maybe distracted, and often with habits that aren't helping, and you've created an environment where stroke risk can quietly triple. Let's get into those specific habits then, because I have a feeling some of these are going to sound very familiar to a lot of people listening right now. And that's really the whole point, isn't it? Absolutely. These habits are incredibly common, often part of our daily routine, and sometimes even feel like the convenient way to start the day. But after 60, convenience can sometimes come at a very high cost to your health. And the first one is, without a doubt, the most overlooked of all: skipping water first thing. Think about it, most seniors wake up and head straight for the coffee maker. Maybe they brush their teeth, check their phone quickly, pour that first cup, and just get on with their day. But they don't drink any water, and that, my friends, is a significant mistake. It's one of the biggest ones I see, because after 8 hours of sleep, your blood is like a sponge that's completely dry. That significantly increases its viscosity, its thickness. And thicker blood moves slower, it's more likely to form clots, and it puts extra strain on your heart and brain trying to push it around. There was a really important study published in a leading European neurology journal that found low morning hydration was a contributing factor in almost half, 48%, of first-time ischemic strokes. Nearly half. Not genetics, not just diet, but simple dehydration playing a major role. So, what's your direct advice? What should someone do the very moment they wake up? Before you do anything else, and I mean anything, drink water. Room temperature or warm is best, definitely not ice cold. Drink 1 full glass before you have that first sip of coffee, before you take your morning pills, before you check the news or your phone. You are literally rehydrating your brain, not just your mouth. Wow, that honestly hits me harder than I expected. I'm thinking about how many mornings I've started with nothing but coffee. No water, no pause, just straight into the caffeine and the demands of the day. And I know I'm definitely not the only one doing that. You are absolutely not alone. It's what most people have gotten used to doing. But your brain doesn't need stimulation first thing, it desperately needs circulation. And that optimal circulation doesn't start with coffee, it starts with hydration. It makes so much sense when you explain it like that. And what I really appreciate about your approach, Dr. Hinhara, is that it's not about scaring people. It's about empowering them with practical knowledge. You're showing us simple ways to help our brains do what they're already designed to do. Exactly, the body is built with an incredible capacity to heal. The brain is designed for smooth, consistent flow. We just have to make sure we're not accidentally getting in its way with our habits. All right, let's move on to the second habit. What's the next morning routine that increases stroke risk after 60? The second habit is something that almost nobody talks about openly, but I see it constantly in my older patients. It's spending too much time sitting in bed before actually getting up and moving around. Staying seated, maybe scrolling through your phone, or just remaining still for 20-30 minutes, sometimes even longer, without actively getting your circulation going. After 60, your blood vessels naturally become less elastic, less flexible. If you go straight from hours of lying flat to just sitting motionless, especially without any movement, blood tends to pool downward in your legs. This slows down the return flow back to your heart. It reduces blood flow to your brain. And for someone with plaque buildup in their arteries or a risk of blood clots, this simple stillness can become a dangerous trigger. That's really surprising. We usually think of lounging and sitting in bed as being restful and harmless, but you're saying it's actually creating a kind of traffic jam for your blood flow. Precisely. Your heart has to work harder to pump that blood back up after it's been pooling. And if blood pressure surges, or if a small, unnoticed clot has formed in a leg overnight, those very first movements of getting up can potentially dislodge it and send it traveling upwards. I've actually seen stroke cases happen right in the bathroom, simply because people went straight from lying down to straining without a proper, gradual transition period. So, what's the safer way to start the day? Wake up slowly, yes, but start moving early asterisk. While you're still lying in bed, do some gentle ankle rolls, point and flex your toes. Then, when you sit up, do some shoulder circles, some gentle neck rolls. Stand up slowly and deliberately, maybe hold onto something for balance. This helps get blood moving upwards again safely, little by little. Even just 2 minutes of gentle movement can prepare your body for a much safer morning transition. That's such a simple adjustment. And again, not about being fearful, just about being smarter about how you approach your body's needs. That truly is the essence of healthy longevity. Small, consistent moments and adjustments can have a massive impact over time. Let's talk about habit number 3, because I know this next one affects almost everyone I know, especially people who are retired and might have changed their schedules. Yes, the third common habit that increases stroke risk after 60 is skipping breakfast. And I don't mean you need to eat a huge meal, I mean skipping any breakfast at all. Too many older adults wake up, maybe drink some coffee, take their morning medications, and then eat absolutely nothing for hours. They might say they aren't hungry, or maybe they're trying some form of intermittent fasting. But after 60, that can be quite risky, particularly for your brain health. Why is that exactly? I thought fasting was supposed to be good for you. Fasting certainly has benefits, but mainly in younger individuals with very stable blood sugar control and strong hormonal rhythms. After 60, your body becomes more vulnerable to hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. And when your blood sugar drops too low, your brain is the first organ to suffer. Your brain runs almost entirely on glucose for energy, and it doesn't store very much of it. So if you're already a bit dehydrated from sleeping, and then you don't eat anything, you're creating a kind of perfect storm for feeling dizzy, having mental fog, or even worse, triggering a vascular event, especially if you're taking medication for blood pressure or diabetes, which can affect blood sugar. That's a really critical point, because I know so many seniors, myself included sometimes, who take medications first thing in the morning and then don't eat for quite a while. That is one of the most dangerous combinations I see regularly. Many stroke cases I've encountered in patients over 65 involved that pattern: skipped meals combined with morning medication and maybe some added stress. Instead, I strongly recommend a small, simple breakfast that includes some protein. It doesn't need to be anything big. Maybe half a boiled egg, a small spoonful of yogurt, a few walnuts you've soaked in water overnight. Just enough to help stabilize your blood sugar and send a clear signal to your brain that it's being supported and fueled for the day. That's a change almost anyone can manage, and it's doable even if you genuinely don't have much of an appetite first thing. Exactly, it's not really about appetite. It's about supporting your circulation, maintaining stability in your blood sugar, and helping establish a healthy rhythm for your body to start the day. That one really resonates with me because for years I actually thought skipping breakfast was a sign of discipline, like I was being healthy by doing it. I'd even feel a little proud. But now I see it's not discipline at all. It's essentially denying my brain exactly what it needs at the precise moment it needs it most. You are absolutely not alone in that, John. Many seniors, and I see this particularly with men, tend to view breakfast as optional or less important. But after 60, when it comes to supporting your circulation and brain health, nothing is truly optional. And that brings us to habit number 4, rushing headfirst into stress. Ah, yes, I can see the wheels turning in your head. Tell me more about what you mean by rushing into stress. It means the moment you wake up, even before your feet hit the floor, you're checking the news, reading stressful emails, maybe getting into a disagreement with your spouse about the day's plans before you've even had a sip of water. This is a real problem because your brain, right after waking up from sleep, is in a very sensitive, vulnerable state. It hasn't fully shifted into its complex cognitive mode yet. Your cortisol levels are already naturally peaking as part of your wake-up cycle. Your blood pressure is also naturally rising in the morning. If you pile mental strain and emotional stress on top of that at that precise moment, you dramatically amplify the physiological stress on your entire system. There was a really significant study published in the journal Stroke back in 2015 that followed over 93,000 people for more than a decade. It found that individuals who experienced high levels of psychological stress early in the day were significantly more likely to suffer a stroke, even after they accounted for other risk factors like age, smoking, and blood pressure. And here's the most alarming part. The risk was highest specifically in those over 60, and highest of all within the first 3 hours of waking up. So, when you wake up and immediately grab your phone or dive headfirst into the demands and worries of the day without creating any kind of buffer space, you are essentially stacking pressure upon pressure in a body that is already naturally on edge in the morning. Instead, consciously create a quiet buffer zone for yourself. Take just 10 quiet minutes. Do some gentle stretching, maybe listen to some calming music, go for a short, slow walk outside, or simply sit quietly with your tea and just be still, breathe. Give your brain a chance to gently stabilize before you start loading it with tasks, information, and potential stress. This isn't just a nice thing to do, it's essential neurological hygiene, especially as we age. That study you mentioned, that's really powerful information. I used to think of stress as mostly emotional, something you felt, maybe vented, and then moved on from. But hearing that it physically primes your body for a stroke, especially first thing in the morning when you're already vulnerable, completely changes how I view every notification, every headline, every rushed or tense conversation at the start of my day. And now we've arrived at it, the one we've all been anticipating. You said at the very beginning of this episode that the final habit might be the most dangerous of all and the most widely ignored. So, let's finally discuss it. What is the 5th morning habit that quietly increases stroke risk and still flies completely under the radar for so many seniors? It can be described in just one word, but it's the foundation that supports all the others: stillness. And I'm not talking about peaceful, meditative stillness here. I'm talking about prolonged physical inactivity. Waking up and then spending the next hour or two sitting, whether it's on the edge of the bed, at the breakfast table, or settled onto the couch. No real movement, no active circulation, just extended stillness. That's definitely something I think many of us, myself included sometimes, are guilty of, especially after retirement when schedules change. You wake up, pour that coffee, maybe settle in to read the newspaper or watch the news. It feels completely normal, even feels relaxing, like you're gently easing into the day. But you're telling us that prolonged stillness could actually be dangerous. Yes, particularly after age 60, because your blood is already naturally more prone to clotting as you get older. Your veins don't push blood upward against gravity as easily as they used to, and without movement, your entire vascular system slows down significantly. Your legs, in particular, become areas where blood can pool, and that's where most dangerous blood clots begin to form. We've known this for years in medical settings. Patients who are sedentary for long periods after surgery are at a sharply increased risk for deep vein thrombosis, those serious leg clots. But what many people don't realize is that same fundamental risk applies to everyday seniors. You might not be in a hospital bed, but if you're sitting still for long, uninterrupted stretches right after waking up, your body can't really tell the difference. The mechanics are similar. That's a serious thought because we usually associate danger with doing too much, with overexertion. But this is the complete opposite. It's the danger of doing nothing, of prolonged inactivity. Exactly. There was a study published in the journal Circulation that tracked over 8,000 adults over the age of 60. They found that those who spent more than 9 hours a day sitting still had double the stroke risk. And this was true even if they exercised later in the day. Why? Because it's not just about the total amount you move throughout the day. It's critically important when you move. So that first hour after waking up, that's the key window of opportunity. That's the window. If you make an effort to move early, even just a little, you activate your circulation right away. You send a clear signal to your body that the day has begun and it's time to get things flowing. But if you remain still, your body tends to assume it's still in a resting state. And that stagnation, even though it might feel harmless, becomes one of the strongest, most overlooked predictors of stroke later in life. So what's the simple solution, the fix for this? Nothing extreme at all. No need for a treadmill workout, no need to break a sweat first thing. We are talking about just 5 to 10 minutes of very light, gentle mobility. You can march in place right next to your bed. Do some shoulder rolls to get your upper body moving. Stretch your arms up over your head a few times. Walk slowly to your mailbox and back. Any gentle movement works. The goal is simply to tell your blood it's time to flow, it's time to circulate. Because when blood flows properly and consistently, your brain thrives. And when your brain is thriving and well supported, your entire body functions so much better. That really does bring everything full circle. Because we started this episode talking about strokes, something most people see as a sudden, unpredictable event. But what you've so clearly shown us, Dr. Hinhara, is that the warning signs and, crucially, the risk factors, they build up quietly over time. And they often start in the smallest, most ordinary parts of our day, how we choose to move, what we might skip, how we consciously choose to begin our mornings. Exactly, healthy living and brain protection after 60 isn't about making dramatic, overwhelming changes all at once. It's about consistent, simple awareness and making small, smarter choices every day. Your brain isn't asking you to be perfect. It's simply asking you to pay attention to the signals it's already sending you. And that, truly, is the single most important message I hope everyone listening today takes away and remembers. You don't necessarily need a new expensive supplement. You don't need some complicated new gadget. You just need to stop ignoring the clear messages your amazing body has been trying to send you all along. Dr. Hinhara, the final word is yours. If you could leave our listeners with just one last line, one key takeaway to hold on to, what would it be? Pay attention to your mornings. They are the foundation of your day, and they can be the foundation of your long-term brain health and vitality.